Okay, now this time I am looking at raw files. You can recognize them here by the file extension or the couple of letters on the end. So that's a JPEG file, which is basically a common internet file, whereas this one is a CRT2, which is actually a raw file. To find out more, generally you look at the properties of the particular file. Skipping over all the stuff, we can just go straight to the details, and it gives you some of the photographic stuff that appears or is attached to that file. If I do the same for the JPEG, you can probably see that some of it may have carried over, some of it may not. So here we've got the same manufacturer, the same photographic settings. Seem to have lost the exposure program. But normally with a lot of JPEGs that you grab off the internet, the stuff ain't there. But you can see there's a lot of information contained in these, otherwise known as the metadata, including descriptions and ratings and such, and the author. So let's bring one of these into Photoshop and see what they give us. It's something a little different to what we're expecting, but there's a lot of cool properties in here that we can play with. So this is known as Camera Raw. It basically allows you to manipulate raw photos straight out of the camera and gives you access to a lot more features that don't normally exist in a JPEG image. So because it is grabbing all this extra information, and the file sizes are actually considerably different in terms of a JPEG to a CRT, sorry. If we look at the daylight, we get a few little tweaks of this little histogram across the top here. Do for shade, shifts again. You can notice maybe the color palette shift on the screen. Fluorescent, goes sort of blue tints. So this is all designed to basically work with the features of the camera. So my as shot, the color temperature is 7800 Kelvin or 7800. And grabbing this slider, we can shift it well down into sort of the inside range under fluoro lights, back up to outside on a hot sunny day, just trying to simulate that external temperature or to compensate for it. On the flip side, we've got the tinting, so we can push it into the greens or all the way to the maroons or magentas, depending on which way you want to look at it. And in this case, really what we're trying to do is find the best position to get that good color palette out of the image. And just by grabbing this, you notice how the histogram slides back and forth in both cases. I'm just going to go with auto because I'm feeling lazy today. And then we've got the same for all these other features of the images shot with the camera. The first is the exposure, the amount of time taken. So we can actually shift the exposure to make the photo more light. So here we can take dark photos and save them a little bit. But ideally, you want to be taking the best quality photos that you can. Or conversely, we can take a light photo and pull out pieces to make it easier to view. It'd be great if we could add some masking to just get the lights, the window, to make the sky clearer, sort of around that range, and then the rest of the photo more sit like that. But you work with what you can get with in this case. The contrast is basically lights to shadows. You can notice the shift in there if I jumped from either end. And just jumping from either end is a great technique to find out what you're actually affecting. So if I want to pull up the highlights and then push the shadows back a little, and the whites, yep, and the blacks, pull those up a little bit. You notice that I'm really transforming the look of this image. Texture, clarity, and dehaze. Well, texture, you can see the real edges cleanly marked out here versus the other flip side. Clarity, going from like a super clear shot to a somewhat fuzzy shot. Dehaze, so yeah, maybe not the best choice. Vibrancy also tends to be a fairly interesting one. These last two, vibrancy and saturation. It goes from a lackluster image that really, the colors are all muted, all the way through to a highly vibrant image with vivid colors. And then saturation, this is completely desaturated. There's no color information in there whatsoever, to completely saturated and over the top. And you can see how the colors just become really pop with all this. But auto is a good starting point, and here you can see it's toned back, versus the default image, which really didn't have any sparkle about it. So these options in Camera Raw give you a great set of features before you even leap into Photoshop proper. And this is what I want you to consider, is what you can do with this sort of stuff. As usual, I seem to have the extras locked on. And here, a fairly simple shot, and now I can go and actually start manipulating to enhance it even more. But that's where I want to draw this to a close, because I really just want to talk about Camera Raw and how we can use it, and we'll continue this later.